Hi everyone, we're here today with Fiona Riley. Hi Fiona.
Hey, good morning, or afternoon, or evening.
Good morning to you, evening to me. Yeah, it's like 10 o'clock here. What time is it with you?
Oh, 8 a.m.
Thank you for getting up to talk to us this morning.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Oh, anytime. How are you going with the quarantine and everything?
It's good. It's working out. I will say I'm getting a lot more words down than I expected, so that's great in the book department, which is
Brilliant.
awesome.
Yeah, well, Chris
Yeah.
Bryant, you were on for the last couple of minutes with the Chris Bryant interview, and you were telling us that you're doing speed races with each other.
Oh yeah, word sprints.
Word
It
sprints,
helps
brilliant.
because everyone's home, or most of us are home. So if I have a few extra minutes I can steal in the middle of the day, Chris is a good sprinter. I can message her quick and she'll make time real fast.
Awesome. Awesome. So I want to start by talking about Mismatch because that's where it all began. Tell me about Mismatch. Where did the concept come from? What happened? What made you want to write that?
Sure. So I have been a writer for most of my life. I wrote a lot as a child. I wrote a lot of poetry, and then I got into medicine, and I sort of left the writing world behind because there's just so much literature to read and so much clinical work to do. And I sort of forgot about it. And I had an instance in my life where I was going to be home for a long period of time. So I was just kind of fooling around with fan fiction and just invigorating my passion for writing. And the idea for Mismatch came to me over one night. I was staying at a friend's house and I woke up and the whole book was done in my brain. And it was just like, well,
Wow.
I have all this time, so I might sit down and write it. So I did. I originally, I used my fan fiction platform to kind of step into it. And then I wrote the book after one really interesting night's dream.
Wow, that's cool.
It was a little wild.
So poetry.
It was a little wild.
Anything,
Mm-hmm.
anything, anywhere that we can find if we wanted to read your poetry?
I was 12 or 13,
Oh, okay.
it was really sweet.
That's cool.
Maybe I'll post it. Maybe I'll post it. That
should.
was my big claim to fame. I was published as a 12-year-old author, poet.
Wow, that's cool. I actually love poetry, so I'm like, I think you should post it. When you wrote Mismatch originally, was it always going to be a series? Was that the plan?
No, so Mismatch came about because I actually I was diagnosed with cancer when I was in my 20s, and I was I was out of work, and I'm a little bit of a workaholic, and I was working a lot, and then I was kind of sidelined with being home and being limited from going outside, not unlike now what's happening with us in this world, and I was restless. So I really wanted to write something with a happy ever after. I wasn't quite sure I was going to get a happy ever after, and I needed something to give me inspiration to get through the day, because sitting home, and I was on chemo treatment at home, it's really challenging to just be in the house, empty house, because my wife was working at the time. So I started writing Mismatch because I needed something to distract myself. And when I turned Mismatch in, it was just a standalone. It wasn't going to be a series. I never planned it that way. I actually have 2 other books that I've written since then that have never made it to publication, because I had a lot of time on my hands and I had a lot of writing to make to catch up on. But my editor, Ruth Sternglantz, who was amazing, she encouraged me to say, this sounds like a really interesting world. Like, what do you think? And if you've read Mismatch, I won't give away too many secrets, but one of the reasons Samantha Montero, who's a matchmaker, finds her love is by finding love for someone else. So she's working hard to match Shelley White, who is a very awkward but lovable person, and that really spawned itself into its own book. Shelley really deserved her own time, and I think that character really fleshed herself out throughout the book, and it just seemed like an easy segue to make it into a series from that point on. So it was not intentional, but it went there. So
it's such a good, and in actual fact, funny you mentioned Shelley. Shelley and my wife are like so alike. I remember reading that book and going, oh God, that's Laura. Oh, that's Laura. Like, I'm like, oh, that's some Laura. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so when you continued it on and did Claire and Shelley's story, I was like, oh, yeah, I love that. And then we went to Sasha and Abby, which, whoa, that was a hot book. Jesus. Whoa. Yeah. What do you reckon out of, like, you've written 6 books now, what was the hardest for you to write?
So I've written 6 books. I've published 6 books. I've written more than that. But I think the most emotional book for me is still always Mismatch. And I think it's the most emotional book because
Totally
I was going through the most emotional time. So I think in a lot of ways I felt trapped. And when I talked about that, there's a big scene in that book that we revisit about the aquarium in Boston. If you're ever in Boston, there's this beautiful aquarium. In the very center of the aquarium is this giant tank, hundreds and hundreds of gallons, hundreds of thousands of gallons. And it runs right up the center of the building. So no matter where you are, you can see the center tank. And it's this magical escape because it almost makes you feel like you're underwater with them. And I think probably the most difficult scene I've written for myself and to read back, and even now, is to see that scene towards the end where Lucinda is by the fish tank, and she's just wondering, like, what is the point of this and everything that we do, and how permanent is everything, and do the fish know that they're trapped? Yeah, it was just a really emotional scene for me to write, and it happened really quickly. It wrote in the first take. It didn't take any editing. It just came right out. And I think that book for me in a lot of ways is my most emotional book because there was so much happening in my life when it came about.
Yeah, I can actually see that. It was a marvelous book. In actual fact, sometimes when I read books, I'll write down places that I want to visit. Like there's been heaps of things like that have come up over the time of reading, like want to see the Bean in Chicago or things like that, and the aquarium in Boston is one of the things that I've written down in my little travel thing that must see if we ever, and it's your book that made me want to go.
Oh, thank you. And Myrtle is a real character. She's really there. She's there. You can see her anytime you get there. So
yeah, well, we're obsessed with turtles in our house and tortoises. So it will be a must-see if we ever get there. We have to see it. Favorite? I'm guessing it's going to probably be Mismatch, but what's your favorite book that you've written?
Mismatch definitely holds a special place in my heart. Honestly, I think I'll love Mismatch till the day I die for sure. But I really, really enjoyed Media Darling. Was really fun to write.
It's a good book.
I did a lot of research for that book, and I have a friend who works in movie production, and I loved Media Darling. I loved writing it. I loved crafting the story. I loved getting involved in that too. So, I mean, probably Mismatch, but Media Darling's a close second.
So Mismatch, for me, was my favourite book until Not Since You, which this was I was going to swear there and say a fucking good book, but it's such a good book. And it was all kinds of fun and sexy. And can you tell me where that idea came from? Because cruise ship, like, God, it's such an amazing book. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And that's the one that's the most recent that's came out.
Right. So Not Since You came out in the fall of last year in 2019. And it's a story of a reunion romance. It's my first reunion romance. So it's two high school lovers who broke up when they went off to college or started their lives, and they find themselves back together 10 years later on a cruise ship, on a lesbian cruise to the Caribbean. And one of them is the head VIP bartender on the cruise, and the other one is supposed to be on her honeymoon, and she broke off her engagement right before the wedding, and she couldn't get her money back on her honeymoon vacation, so she decided to go. And she runs into this, her first love there. And the premise is funny. I went on a cruise that actually went to these islands, so I have personal experience to all these locations in the book. And I went on the cruise for a wedding. So for a couple of my friends got married, and they wanted to get married, do a destination wedding. I'd never been on a cruise before, so it was, when I tell you that it was so present in my mind, because I had just gotten off the cruise and I wrote the story, map it out. So all the details, everything that happened, that I did all those things. I went for sure, I saw the under area where the employees are. It's all that stuff happened because I had some really great connections and contacts. So I did a cruise like this. It was my first experience with the cruise. Obviously things have changed since that book have come out, but but it was really fun, and visiting the islands and catching all that important those aspects of the life that they have and the community. And if you've ever done a cruise, it really truly is a city at sea. There's so much happening, and there's so many people. So it just felt like a really fun place to have a romance kind of bloom and accelerate, because of course you're on a short timeline, right? So you only have so much time to do what you need to get done. And I think that was probably the hardest part of that book, was writing, knowing that I was on a little bit of a time crunch, because you're only on the island, and you're only on the boat for so long, you're only on the islands for so long, you gotta get creative.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was brilliant. Such a good book. And that leads me on to my next question, and I ask all authors this, because I'm a sucker for a sequel. I love sequels, right? It's just I don't know why, but I just love the continuation. I think that's why I love an epilogue so much. Like, it's like my massive tick. Any of those books, could you foresee more? Is there one in particular you go, maybe in the future something could come from that?
I'm sure. I don't think I ever discount doing that. I think there's always a part of me that wants to continue the Match series. I think there's always a follow-up that I would love to do. Media Darling is going to get a little revisit very soon. So the characters in Media Darling you'll see again. I wouldn't call it a sequel, but you'll definitely see them very soon. And I think that Lexi and Charlotte from Not Since You have a lot of story to tell.
I do too.
Yeah, so I think for sure.
Where they end up at the end of that book, I really could see something coming from that. Like that was it would be such a good segue into so many other things. Yeah,
I want to go there.
Me too. So I want to talk about the sexy scenes you write, because they're pretty darn sexy, right? Like Strike a Match for one. I mean, Mismatch in itself had some blow you away moments, but Strike a Match, and I think a lot of the standalones as well, like, wow. Would you ever consider doing like a little bit of erotica? Would you consider writing something like that?
I think I definitely straddle the line, word choice intended. I think I definitely push the envelope. There are people who don't like how involved my scenes are, for sure. It's what I like to read. So I want the passion on the page to be palpable. So I would certainly do erotica. I think the bigger problem with me is that I tend to be verbose, so I write a lot. So to write erotica like in a one-off would be challenging, although I do it. So people ask me how I get over writer's block or what happens if I hit a bump. I actually don't hit bumps when I write, because if I run into a roadblock, I write a sex scene. So that's how I cleanse my palate. So I have plenty of erotica fodder on my computer. Maybe I'll send it to you. And you can tell me what you think. Yeah,
you know,
I just never made it in a book.
What are you doing? I should have had this already. Come on. Yes.
So they just haven't made it in books yet, or they're extra scenes that I've cut. But that's how I reinvigorate my passion for the characters. I put them in a position that makes them have, intensity and passion and a connection. So I will write a sex scene to break writer's block. So sure, I would absolutely write erotica.
I think that's really funny you saying that, because a lot of authors say that it's one of the hardest things they write is the sex scenes.
Sure.
And they really struggle with it. I actually had a conversation with a new author a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, I'm at this sex scene and I know that the readers want it, but I can't do it. And I'm like, well, if you can't do it good, don't do it. Because
right. You
either do it really, really well, or you just go bang with the romance and make sure that that's really good and fade to black a little bit. So I guess we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I've often read one of your books and thought, oh, that really does straddle the line a little bit of like erotica.
I mean, I think I had a reader once call me the Queen of Steam, and I think that is the highest compliment. The highest compliment I've been paid. Yeah. Because I'm a passionate person. Like, if you meet me in person, I'm the same as I am in real life. Like, I'm just, I'm friendly, I'm social, I'm physical. I'm like, I'm a hand holder, I'm a hugger, I'm a toucher. Yeah. And I feel like that's the way my characters are too. Like, they're all very passionate people. I don't write a wallflower. Even Shelley was not a wallflower. She was a little shy, but she wasn't a wallflower.
No, she was.
She had her concentrations in other places, but it's important for me to have people that are represented that are strong and confident and know what they want and they get it. And I think that reflects a strong sex life and
yeah, it's very sexy. Yeah, it is very sexy. It's So how do you balance it all, Fiona?
So now's a different time, obviously, but to be honest, I wake up early before I have 2 little girls. I wake up early before the kids get up, and I write then, and then normally I'd go to work, and then I write in between, and I write at night. So I write most of my sex scenes at night, and I write most of my romance in the morning or conversation dialogue. But that being said, I don't skip around. I write in order, so it just sort of depends. But I get up early and I stay up late. That's how I make it work, because I get 2 little kids, so you got to kind of be flexible.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, you got up this morning to talk to me. I was really chuffed about that. So that's awesome. When you look at your characters, is there any that you go, there's more of me in there than maybe other characters? Is there like one particular character you see a lot of yourself in?
I think there's a lot of me in Lucinda Moss. So if you read Mismatch,
Lucy.
Lucy, there's a lot of me in Lucy, a lot of me. And there's a lot of my wife and Samantha. And if you ever meet her in real life, you'll know too, because it's right. It's very it's right there on the surface.
Wow, okay.
But I think there's a little, I think the best qualities I think I have, I try to put into the characters that I have because I feel comfortable with them. I feel like I want someone who's, like I said, who's confident, who's friendly, who's an outgoing person. And I think that in my nature, that's who I am. So yeah. I definitely try to make sure that makes its way into the book, because I find that to be something that I like, I like and I'm proud of and I'm happy about, and I feel like is important to progress the character. But I think probably the most on page is probably Lucinda, and there's quite a bit of me in Emerson, but I'm not Emerson. Try as I might be.
When you were just starting out, there's a lot, this is a question that always really interests me. Why did you go with a publisher instead of going down the indie route? What made you go, you know what, I'm going to try BSB, what Bold Strokes Books? Why was that?
So for me, because I do have two littles and I do work in medicine, I'm very busy. And I think that being able to prioritize what I want to get done and how I want my word to get out has to be hands off for me. So the reason I wanted to go with a publisher is that I didn't have the time and to be able to put into the marketing and the reaching out and establishing a brand in the beginning the way I would have wanted to, the way you do when you start a full-time career. For me, writing was a catharsis and it was a way to escape. And then it's something I really loved and enjoyed, and I felt I was doing a good job at, so I wanted to continue. But I'm not an expert, and I think that for me, I needed to go to somebody who could tell me where the pieces needed to go in order to make those things work. So in my case, it's that I'm just really busy. And for me, I really felt comfortable with handing the reins over to somebody who knew what they were doing. Yeah. And in my personal experience, Bold Strokes has been so welcoming, and they have such a great community. So it really worked out for me, but and I wouldn't do it any other way now, for sure. But for me in the beginning, that's what it was. It was a matter of, I don't know what I'm doing. You're the expert in the field. Yeah.
Makes sense.
What should we do?
Yeah. And it looks like you guys are like just one big family. Like you have like really close friends now, like in Chris Bryant, for example, and a lot of other authors. And I see the pictures and stuff when you guys are at events together, and it just looks like you're one big family, and that looks like a lot of fun.
I mean, they do a good job of the authors that are involved. I've met so many wonderful people, and I think that's the biggest change with writing, is that I've had this brand new community. Because when you go to work and you have a life and you have your family and you have this like little circle, right? But when you start writing and you have these people in Australia and you have people in England, you have all these people all over the world, that all of a sudden you have these friends and true friendships that I feel a connection to and have a companionship with. That happens, and Bold Strokes does a good job of fostering that, and I think the authors involved with them do a great job of making everyone feel welcome, because the one thing about writing is it's isolating in some ways, because you're alone and you're going through all these emotions on the page, and you're putting all this vulnerability out there, but also you need to be fostered in a way with other people. So having these friendships so easily connected, I can just dial you up, I can dial up Chris, I can do whatever, I can call Melissa Braden or Georgia or anybody, that's wonderful to be able to just reach out and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this, like, what are your thoughts? And so there is a great community that comes with it, and I'm so grateful for that, because it is something that I can literally pick up my phone and text or shoot an emoji at or send a dirty joke to and get a response.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that is really good. Talking to Melissa Braden, she's got little Easter eggs that she hides in her novels that kind of link everything up. And I always like to ask the question, is there something that we should be looking for in your books? Do you create these little Easter eggs, or do you keep them very separate when they're standalone?
I don't keep them separate. There are Easter eggs in every book so far. Some of them are harder to find than others. Some of them are blatant. Like I said, you're going to be revisiting Emerson Sterling very soon. It's going to be a blatant nod to her. Okay. I've mentioned Mismatch in a few books by name. So if you can find those. But yeah, I try to always reach back as a nod to people who've read before. Every book has a reach back.
Yeah, I enjoy it. If you've got like people that are fans that are going to read all of your books, they're going to get excited about those little things. So I look for them. Like if I'm reading a particular author who I know does it, like I look for them now, and I get excited when I find one. Feel like I've found a little secret. It's awesome. What are the most, I always say outrageous things, but what's the most craziest, outrageous thing you've ever done in the name of research?
So, strike a match. I did a lot of glass blowing before I wrote that book.
Wow.
So that, although not the most extreme thing I've ever done,
Pretty cool though.
It was something that I did hands-on and learned a lot about. So everything that's in that book is something I've done mostly hands-on. So that was really fun to do, and I had a very unique experience. Like in Media Darling, I was able to actually fly to Europe in a private plane for work. So that was a really cool experience. So again, the scene of her on the plane when they're together, I've been on one of those, and it was really exciting and interesting and different. And there's a lot of stuff that's in room service that I was able to experience. I went to Navy Pier. I've been on Ferris wheels. I've done some of those things in the carousel. So, that was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. So nothing extreme yet, but I do definitely put myself in the research position.
I think glass blowing's pretty cool. Like that's a cool experience. Did you make anything? Did you come away with anything after that?
Oh yeah. I've got it quite a few times. I have the bowl that they reference in that book, the fruit bowl. I have. I did make that on a date with my wife, actually, and we have some other things, some tchotchkes, some
that's lovely.
Pumpkins and vases. Yeah, I really love glass blowing. It's. I'll tell you, it's hot though. It's hot.
Hot as in warm, or hot as in
physically hot? It's phically hot.
Physically
it's very
hot.
warm.
Okay. Just
make sure you put your hair up when you go,
because it sounds pretty hot as well. Is there a book that you look back on and you think I would have maybe tweaked that or made a change to it? Is there anything in any of your books that you read it now and go, I wish I'd done that a little bit different?
I don't necessarily disagree with where I went in the story writing. I've gotten some feedback a couple of times about Media Darling. Mm-hmm. And I think some people wanted to see Haley's fleeing. I'm going to give a spoiler away.
I know.
They wanted to see they wanted to see Haley's reaction to what happens at the end of the book to change. And so I didn't really spoil it, but they felt like it was quick, and they wanted a little more delve into how that went. And for me, I was comfortable with the way it went because I feel like all along we've had a lot of communication with Haley and who she was, and I have an intimate knowledge of these people because I write these characters.
Yeah.
But I think that maybe that would probably be the only thing I would change. I might give a little more, half a chapter to where she went and how she went or why she did what she did.
Okay.
But I mean, maybe that's it. And even then, honestly, I think that if anyone's had something happen to them that's embarrassing or traumatizing, like in a social way, like a socially embarrassing moment, not like an actual traumatic moment, but sure, have hidden in my shirt before and like run away. And so towards the end of that book, Haley makes a decision that seems sort of abrupt, but I think I get it, and I would do the same thing.
Yeah, I think people, if you've not read the book, read the book, but like anybody in that instance would totally feel that way, like gut-wrenching, hide, ground open up and swallow me. So yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I'm glad you haven't changed that though. I love that book. Don't change that book.
Yeah. I won't. I won't. But that would probably be the only part that I think. I don't even think I'd change it. But I got a lot of feedback on that, and I think I've been mortally embarrassed before, so I get it.
Yeah, I get it too. So you touched on earlier on fanfic. Can you tell us a wee bit about your fanfic background? Like, is there stuff out there that we're missing? Tell us.
So I did write fan fiction for a while, admittedly not very briefly before I published because, again, I had like a life change. So I was writing a lot of fan fiction then, and then I just transitioned easily into publication. But for me, the Samantha and Lucy in Lucinda in Mismatch were actually very, very loosely based on Britannia from Glee, where Samantha was very much Santana and Brittany was in Lucinda very, very loosely based on them. But yeah, that was kind of where some of that came from. The inspiration for maybe their early characterization was from that.
I love Glee. So, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And you also mentioned things that you've written. I mean, is there a lot of stuff out there that, I say out there, is there a lot of stuff you have that's not made it out there yet that's unpublished? Like, what are we talking here? Like a couple of novels, a couple of short stories? What?
I have 2 complete novels that have not been published. And
Why
they're
not?
a little different. Well, they're a little different. So one of them was sort of more of a young adult coming of age. And one of them, it's just that one of them could see the light of day. The other one, I'm not so sure. But they were early works, and it's just like, but they're fully complete. There are 2 complete books in this world that have not made it to publication that maybe someday will.
They better. I now know them. They better. I want to see them. Does your writing energize you or exhaust you? Like once you finish a book, do you go, like, thank God that's done? Or are you like raring to go with the next idea?
I think writing is contagious, and it's infectious. So once you meet people who are in the community that like to read and write, you realize that most everyone sort of has a connection. But once you start, it's like something that drives you. I love to write. If I could write all day long and pay my bills and still be with my little girls, I would do it all day. It's something about character building and world building, getting lost in all of those wonderful, the best starts of, the highs and lows of the relationship that starts, all that stuff. There's something so magical about that. Yeah. And to be able to live through that and rewrite that and relive it every day and reinvent it, I think is awesome. So yeah, absolutely. I love to write. I just finished a novel Friday. So today is Wednesday. And wow. that was a big exhale novel, but mostly because of how much of the world has changed since I started the novel and when I ended it. Things changed around me. I was home now. I'm home with the girls. So that was definitely more challenging. It was hard to finish the book, only because timing got different. But no, usually when I finish a book, I take a week or 2 just to relax and mull over what's next. And then I usually try to jump right back in if I can. I love to write.
Awesome. What are you writing? What are you writing now, or what have you just finished? Actually, let's start. What have you just finished?
I just finished Bet Against Me. Okay, ooh. It's a novel that comes out in November, and actually, it's the start of a 3-book series. So,
yay!
I'm coming back to the series life. So this one comes out in the fall, and it takes place at a luxury real estate firm in Boston, and it's about 2 rival real estate realtors who are in a competition to outsell the other and claim the prize of Realtor of the Year. And it starts out with them being absolute rivals, like nasty, hate each other kind of rivals, and then it expands and kind of blends into a love story. But it's the start of this company is called Gamble and Associates, and so all the books in the series will have some sort of bet in them, or bet in the title.
Awesome.
So Bet Against Me is the first book. Out? I got them all. I'm going to be done with them soon. So Bet Against Me is the first one, and next year there'll be Bet the Farm, and next fall most likely will be Beginner's Bet. So they all kind of take place out of this realtor office in Boston, and it's all about a group of friends and the owner and how their relationships develop inside and outside of work.
Cool. And they're based in Boston?
Based in Boston.
Awesome. And are you going to go all 3 books, or are you going to do any books in between, or are you just going to shoot right through that?
I'm going to go right through. I do have a Christmas novella coming out this year that I'm writing with Georgia Beers and Maggie Cummings, so that will be out in the middle. So you'll get Bet Against Me this fall, and then you'll get the novella around Christmas time, and then the other 2 will come out right after.
I do love a novella, so I do, especially at Christmas time. That's awesome. That is awesome. It's something I always want to ask, and I actually didn't send you this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I said that I might just throw things in. What books do you read? What authors do you read? What are the things, like, even before you started writing, what was the first lesfic that you read, for example?
The first lesfic I ever read was I'm late to the game. I apologize. I didn't read lesfic until I was out of college. I was really busy in school and I was reading a lot of medical texts and things like that, so I didn't have a lot of leisure read. The first book I ever picked up, I actually got in from a Barnes & Noble before they closed. It was Borders. It wasn't even Barnes & Noble. It was a Borders book sale, and I was walking past from the bargain book bin, and there was 3 books in there, and all 3 of them were like marked down, and I could afford them because I was college and poor. The first book I ever read was Family Affair by Saxon Bennett.
Oh, wow.
And then I have them next to me. I kept them. I've never gotten rid of them, actually. And then Keepers of the Cave, Jerry Hill, and then I read Wild by Radcliffe. Yeah, those are my first 3. I read them all within the course of a weekend, and they're all very different. Like Family Affair is very wholesome and very funny and sweet, and Keepers of the Cove is a little sci-fi.
Yeah, it is.
Right. And then Wild is also a little sci-fi, but definitely more on the erotica side. So I kind of hit all 3 that weekend. So those are my first 3 exposures to lesfic, and I kept them. I have them next to me. So.
It's really funny because sometimes I look back at the first one that I read and I think, God, like how things have changed now. Like I've read hundreds and hundreds now, but I remember that holding that first book being like, oh my God, there's lesbian fiction. How did I not know this? I'm like 29 and I'm just finding it. Just like amazing. And you guys
I was so late. I was so late to the game. Like you're right. There was a plethora for me. By the time I discovered it, there was Georgia Beers already had 20 books or whatever, and Carson Tate already had 19 books, and Melissa Braden already had 7 or 8 books by the time so I was so delayed in catching up to it that when I found it was like discovering the new perfect library. You know, endless opportunities. So, but I didn't always.
It's amazing.
I didn't always read romance, and I didn't read lesfic before this. I'm a mystery reader. I used to read a lot of Agatha Christie and Mary Higgins Clark, and then as I got into medicine, some more like James Patterson and even some Robin Cook stuff. But I didn't actually read romance until I was much older.
Yeah, wow. Someone's trying to get in to talk to us, and it's probably our next guest coming to say, hey, shall we let them in? I think we will.
I suppose.
Let's do it.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. It's Erin Zach, everyone.
Hello there.
Hello there. Erin's going to be our next guest.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
Very excited. Very excited.
And this time we're going to see Erin at nighttime instead of at 8:30 in the morning.
It's probably going to look a lot different than this.
I'm so sorry.
Have a couple of cocktails.
It's okay, Fiona. Right? It's okay. I'm drinking coffee, so the next time that's not what will be in here.
No.
Okay.
We've actually teed it up so that it's closer to lunchtime, so I can also have a drink.
That's perfect.
Because I couldn't
What
drink
time is it
Fiona
for you
because it's just not right.
Yeah. What time is it for you now?
It's like 10:45 p.m.
Oh, that's not too bad. I thought you were going to say something like,
6:30.
Okay, that's horrible. Everything for you, Fiona.
Okay. All right. All right. I've been like hitting the coffee.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you very much for joining me. This is
thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for the last 5 minutes, Erin.
No problem.
I'll
it was
see
so
you
great
weekend.
seeing you both. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Awesome.
Thanks, ladies.
Bye, Fiona.
Again.
Bye.
Bye.